One piece of cloth convinced millions it bore the face of Christ, until science stepped into the courtroom. The Turin Shroud sits behind bulletproof glass in a cathedral in northern Italy, and for over 4 centuries, pilgrims have believed they're staring at the burial cloth of Jesus Christ himself. 14 feet long, woven linen, bearing a faint but unmistakable image of a man's face and torso. The markings suggest wounds consistent with crucifixion. On the surface, the case for authenticity seems overwhelming, but when you pull the evidence apart, really examine it, the narrative fractures. Let's establish the claim first. Believers argue the shroud is genuine, a first-century artifact that wrapped Jesus after his crucifixion. The image, they say, was burned into the cloth by some form of radiation during the resurrection itself. It's a spiritual argument dressed in scientific language. But here's where skeptics push back. If this cloth is truly ancient, where was it for the first 1,000 years of Christian history? Exhibit 1, the historical record is silent. The shroud doesn't appear in any documented inventory, any bishop's letter, any monastery catalog until the 1350s in Liéry, France. That's a gap of 13 centuries. For a cloth supposedly containing the physical imprint of the resurrected Christ, that silence is deafening. Believers offer explanations: lost during wars, hidden by fearful disciples, kept secret by early Christians. But each excuse requires us to assume facts, not an evidence. Exhibit 2, the 1988 carbon dating test. 3 independent laboratories, Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona, were given samples of the shroud's fibers. The results were consistent. The linen dated to between 1260 and 1390 AD. Medieval, not 1st century, not even close. The Vatican's own scientists reviewed the methodology and found no fault. Yet believers immediately cried contamination, claiming the sample was taken from a patched region added centuries later. Here's the problem with that defense. It's unfalsifiable. No matter what evidence emerges, believers can always claim contamination, degradation, or divine interference. That's not faith, that's a legal strategy designed to win no matter what. A genuine skeptic, by contrast, sets conditions in advance. If the dating shows medieval, I'll accept it. The shroud believers changed the rules after the game ended. Exhibit 3, the image itself. It's not painted, that much is true. But it's also not a scorch mark, not a chemical burn, not any natural process we can replicate. It's a surface phenomenon. The image sits only on the topmost fibers of the linen, not penetrating deeper. Under magnification, it looks almost photographic, which raises an obvious question. How did a 1st century burial cloth produce a photographic negative? Medieval forgers didn't have cameras. They didn't understand optics or chemistry the way we do. But they did understand something else: how to manipulate a crowd's desire to believe. In the 1350s, when the shroud first surfaced, relic trading was a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Fake bones, fake blood, fake cloth, all selling for fortunes. The shroud was a product in a marketplace of deception. Exhibit 4, the pollen. Shroud defenders point out that pollen from Middle Eastern plants was found embedded in the cloth. This, they argue, proves it traveled through the Holy Land. But here's what they don't mention. Those same pollen samples were found throughout Europe during the medieval period, imported on trade routes and pilgrims' garments. The pollen proves travel, not origin. Exhibit 5, the blood. Believers claim the stains on the shroud are human blood, AB type specifically. But chemical analysis shows no hemoglobin, the protein that makes blood red. Instead, researchers found iron oxide and other compounds consistent with paint pigment. The blood isn't blood. It's a forgery's attempt to make the image more convincing. Now, believers have countered every single one of these points. They've proposed alternative dating methods, questioned the carbon-14 lab's integrity, suggested miraculous image formation, and argued that paint analysis was inconclusive. Each rebuttal is technically possible, but possibility isn't probability. And in a court of evidence, we don't convict on possibilities, we convict on facts. The pattern here is classic misdirection. When one claim fails, believers pivot to another. When science contradicts, they invoke mystery. When logic closes a door, they open a window labeled faith. This isn't how evidence works. It's how belief works. And the two aren't the same thing. Here's what we know for certain. A piece of linen appeared in France in the 1350s. It was carbon dated to that period. The image on it shows no evidence of 1st century origin. The blood is fake. The historical record shows no trace of it before the medieval era. those are the facts. Everything else is interpretation. Could a medieval forger have created it? Absolutely. We don't know exactly how. The image formation technique remains unclear. But unclear doesn't mean miraculous. It means we need more research, not more faith. The burden of proof lies with those claiming authenticity, not with those demanding evidence. What fascinates me most is the psychology behind shroud belief. People want it to be real. The image is genuinely striking. The historical narrative is compelling. Believing offers comfort, certainty, connection to something transcendent. That's human, that's understandable, but it's not evidence. The shroud reveals something deeper about how deception works, not just in medieval times but now. A compelling story, combined with selective evidence and emotional investment, can override scientific reality for millions of people. That's not faith failing. That's human psychology succeeding at exactly what it evolved to do: find patterns, create meaning, believe the tribe. So here's the final verdict. The Shroud of Turin is almost certainly a medieval forgery created between 1260 and 1390 by an unknown artisan. The carbon dating is solid. The historical gap is inexplicable. The image formation remains mysterious, but mystery isn't magic. It's just something we haven't figured out yet, and that's okay. Believers will keep believing. That's their right. But the evidence doesn't support authenticity. It supports a skilled medieval craftsperson who understood exactly what would convince a desperate, faithful audience. That's not a miracle. That's a con, one of history's most successful ones. Subscribe. Every week we expose how belief, science, and deception collide in cases that shaped history.